really bring to the game?
He's a really great athlete and all-around player. You have a lot of players on the team that are either great deep receivers or great handlers, or they fill specific roles really well. But the thing that Dylan brings to the team as an all-around player that's just a great athlete as a whole, he can handle in a pinch, he plays great team defense, he can run in transition, he can keep up with whoever you match him up against. He just fills so many slots that he just gives so many more of your exclusive guys more options.
Definitely a welcome addition to the field tonight. Now, when Jacksonville and Dallas played back in May, Jacksonville had a strategy where they used their very tall cutter, Misha Freystadter, on primary handlers like Brandon Malachek. It proved very effective in that game. What type of strategy, then, do you think that Jacksonville is really going to try and employ tonight?
Well, I think matching Misha up against Brandon Malachek was extremely effective for them, and more so for the after the turn. If Dallas has a backfield turn from Malachek making a throw or whatnot, that puts Misha matched up against Malachek and maybe one other pair of players, one from Dallas, one from Jacksonville, in the backspace. Jacksonville picks that up on a turnover, sees those matchups. They want to take that shot every time because Misha is extremely physical. He's a big guy, and Malachek is not necessarily known for his jump ball defense against a guy that stands that tall. So that's what Jacksonville wants to do, get backfield turns, get quick scores after a turnover, and try and build a lead quickly that way.
Another headline throughout the season, not just from Dallas, has been certainly the physicality that Jacksonville brings to every game. Certainly that was the case when the teams met in May, but when you go back and look at the game footage, you can see there was physical play on both sides of the disc. But what does a team like Jacksonville, what do they bring out of their opponents to rise kind of that physical level?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things when your team plays a physical game on a regular basis, it challenges the other team to try and match that physicality in some way, shape, or form. You don't have to necessarily, if they can't handle being bumped whenever they have the disc and you're marking them, if they can't handle being bumped on basically every jump ball, it throws them off their game. Like the second, third, fourth, fifth time you bump into them, they just get off balance, they get that mental fatigue going, and it's hard to stay with them. Conversely, as Jacksonville, if you play every game in a very physical way, that can wear on your team over the course of a season. You may have guys that just through errant contact end up with a busted knee, a busted shoulder, or whatever, just at a physical play. So you need to be a bit careful, and you may lose a major player that way. But if that's your strategy, then it can work for you.
And one player who is in attendance tonight who will not be suiting up is Kurt Gibson. Kurt, as you know, a little over 16 weeks ago, tore his left pectoral muscle. He underwent surgery for that, but was cleared to run about 3 weeks ago. So Kurt said, I'm really glad it was my left pectoral, not my right. Certainly he's right-handed, right, yes. Throwing arm, that helps. But he didn't want to risk any kind of injury, whether it was against Jacksonville or not, being so close from having such an injury. He said he will be back, though, for the playoff game should Jacksonville and Dallas face each other, which is likely. What difference does that make to the team?
Well, the thing about Kurt is that he's going to be talented and he's going to be athletic no matter, if you get a 70% Kurt, that's still better than a lot of players in the game. So you can't really, fault him for playing it safe and coming back when he's cleared by the doctors and whatnot. As far as coming back late in the season into the postseason, Kurt is a fiery player. He likes to take the reins of a team and whatnot, so Dallas is going to have to make some adjustments in terms of working with him. A lot of the team from last year is coming back, and they played with him before, so it'll work out in that regard. But there are a few new guys, and there may be some bumps in the road. Hopefully they iron themselves out over the couple of weeks before the playoffs, and maybe within the first quarter of the first playoff game, but we'll see how that goes.
He certainly takes over whatever line he is a part of. So speaking of our playoff implications, Dallas is currently sitting in the second seed spot in the South Division. But, Paul, what does this game tonight mean for the host of that 2 versus 3, Jacksonville in the 3 spot? What does tonight's game mean for that home field advantage for the first game of the playoffs?
So the way the math plays out on this one, Dallas has 2 more games in the regular season, including this one, and Jacksonville has this and 2 other games, so they have an extra game to play besides Dallas. If Dallas loses this game to Jacksonville and loses the next game against Austin next week, and Jacksonville wins this game against Dallas, obviously, and wins the rest of their games against Austin and Nashville, I believe, that would then reverse the seeding and put Jacksonville in second place, consequently hosting that first playoff game.
Gotcha. So currently, Dallas has 2 losses to Jacksonville's 4 losses. So really, this is a must-win situation for Dallas tonight, as is their away game versus Austin next week. But we are just moments away from our first pull, and I think it'll be really exciting tonight. This is the first Friday night game in franchise history as well. Certainly, Friday nights are nothing new to Texas sports. We used to playing under the Friday night lights. Just kind of a flat ball tonight instead of a football.
We don't need the lights just yet, but I'm sure we'll need them by the end of the night, too.
They are on. I believe they are on. So is the
on.
sun. The sun is very much on as well. So the Dallas O-line is on the field. Jacksonville will pull to start the game. Great crowd on hand here in the Colony 5-Star Sports Complex. And that first pull is off. Dylan Freechild catches the pull. Now to Chris Mazer. Mazer with the double team. Jacksonville running a little bit of a zone, kind of sagging in the lanes. Kai Marshall with the disc on the far side of the field. Up the line to Abe Coffin. Back around to Mazer. Mazer to Mickle. Swings back over to Mazer. To Mickle. To Freechild. If you think Freechild kind of looks like Drago Malfoy, you would be right. And he said he takes that as a compliment. He has identified with House Slytherin before this. He and fellow Team USA member Jimmy Mickle both frosted their hair tips for Potlatch recently, along with the other Team USA players. Mickle, count getting high, finds Mazer. Back to Mickle. Over the top to Peterson. Peterson to Mickle. Mickle across to Freechild. Up the middle to Mazer. To Casey Hogg. Back to Mazer. A little give and go between Mazer and Hogg. Finds an opening to Freechild. Swings across to Mickle. Now to Mazer. Back to Mickle. Hammer over the top to Stanley Peterson. And that disc is caught for our first goal of the game.
Interesting call, and probably a wise one by Jacksonville to start the game off in that junky type of zone look. One of the things that Dallas can really start to get the engine firing on is having an initiating play that only takes 4 or 5 throws to score, and Jacksonville playing those lanes and putting a couple of their big guys over the top to cover the deep space really slows down Dallas's offense and makes them take 30 throws to score, makes them think about what they're doing. Excellent composure by Dallas, on the other hand, just taking really easy throws, really easy dumps. Jacksonville looking a little bit slow in the first point or so, just like covering the disc as it swung across the field or went into the dump space. So it was a good call. Made them work a little bit harder than they wanted to. Took a lot longer to score than they probably wanted to, but at the same time, well played by Dallas.
How would would fatigue become a factor for teams now? The Dallas O-line probably throwing triple the number of throws, I guess, as they would. I guess we'll wait and see. Now Jacksonville with the disc. Lay in the center of the field over to Roney. Roney across to Huston. Huston back to Lay. Around to to Catron, excuse me. Fairley on the near sideline. Swings across. Matt Jackson tips the disc. Lay stays with it. Loses some yards in the process, but keeps possession. Roney up the line to Langdon.
Yeah, you got J-Bo. Jimmy, you too.
Langdon to Huston. Huston finds Lay striking up line. We're in the red zone now. Swings around to Kunze. Kunze across to Lay. Out in front, Kunze closes in, up the line to Langdon, and Jacksonville answers with a score.
Jeremy Langdon generating for Jacksonville again. He's one of their biggest all-around players. He's a great athlete. He's a good thrower in his own right, and he generates a lot of flow for their offense, making a bunch of undercuts and swinging the disc across the field. Dallas forcing backhand towards this side of the field. Probably a good call. Jacksonville going into a headwind. Backhands tend to float a little bit more if you bait them into a long shot, which Jacksonville likes to do. But unfortunately, Dallas getting beat too much on the line strikes from handlers cutting up the line from the dump space and on unders. If you're going to bait those guys into taking that deep shot, you need to protect the unders a lot more.
And if Jeremy Langdon looks familiar to you, it's because he was on the Dallas Roughnecks last season. He has since moved back to Florida. He is initially from Florida and elected to play with the Cannons, who he played with 2 years ago anyway, a little closer to home. So it's a great homecoming for Jeremy. Freechild catching the pull over to Mazer. Mazer to Peterson. Peterson up the line to Coffin. Coffin around to Mazer. Finds Mickle on the far sideline. Jimmy Mickle with that floating backhand. You have several players, but Stanley Peterson is there. And that's a score.
Almost nonchalant with the way he grabbed that disc. Extremely good read in traffic. Saw that all 4 players that initially jumped were going to undercut that. And Stanley caught his defender off guard, really, because he knew that those 4 guys were going to miss it. The defender probably thought the pile was going to get it and he would get it off a deflection. But Stanley being proactive there came up with that disc.
He just caught it right off the top. And our first 2 Dallas scores of the game are both assists from Jimmy Mickle to his college and club teammate, Stanley Peterson.
He is one of Jimmy's favorite targets. I don't know if he was the intended target on that particular throw, but, really, whenever Jimmy puts it up, half the time Stanley comes down with it anyways, whether it was or was not intended for him, so it works out in the end.
Stanley definitely knows to just go get it. So Dallas has a 1-goal lead, their 2 to Jacksonville's 1. 8:40 left in the first quarter. Joel Clutton pulling for Dallas. He, of course, a University of Texas teammate with Dylan Larberg, who is on the field for the first time this season. Lay finds Catron unguarded. Swings over to Kunze. Back to Catron. Over to Lay. Up! Oh. And that backhand is up in the air, but it is completed by Fairley. I've been playing so much, I just yelled that up call.
Too much of a habit. Can't hold yourself back sometimes. Really excited about this game. Lay taking the shot there. We've seen a couple of throws like backhand hucks going into this win already that floated up. Jimmy's last point and Lay's this point. It's going to be a jump ball type of a day because there is a bit of a headwind. As the sun tends to go down, the wind tends to calm down in this Texas environment. But for right now, there is still a headwind. Whether it's gusty or steady, it's going to be there. So both teams have to prepare for that.
And Fairley taking a very aggressive line, but had full power to very convincingly catch that score. So now Dallas O-line back on the field. Alex Bullock to pull for Jacksonville. Casey Hogg catching. Centers to Mazer. Mazer around to Freechild. Freechild back to Mazer. Freechild on the move. Back to Mickle. Mickle to Freechild. Back around to Mazer. Up the middle to Coffin. Back to Mazer. Now Peterson with the disc. To Hogg. Now Mazer right outside the end zone. And Casey Hogg sneaks in for the score.
To some degree, Jacksonville playing this junkie zone against Dallas really does work in the favor of some of Dallas's handlers there. You see Dylan Freechild, Chris Mazer, Casey Hogg, and a little bit of Abe Coffin too. Those are generally shorter guys, so they don't necessarily want a bunch of jump ball matchups against some of Jacksonville's bigger, more, taller receivers. If you play that junk zone or whatnot, they work that underspace, still 4 or 5 yard throws at a time, maybe even less than that, and they catch you on your heels. It's really hard to recover your defense and get in the way, get in the lanes in front of them as these really short, quick guys are just running past you.
Certainly, once Dylan Freechild gets a step, it's really hard to stop that Freechild train once it's left the station. Brandon Malachek, normally on the O-line, is about to pull for the D-line. Lay now with the disc in the center of the field. Finds Langdon. Langdon back to Lay. Huston with the sliding grab underneath. There is a whistle. There was a down call on the whistle, but that has been overruled. The disc will stay with Huston. He's marked by Malachek. There was an integrity call with that. Now Lay with the disc. Up to Catron. Over to Roney, around to Lay. Kunsa now, underneath to Huston, to Lay. Langdon off the front of the stack. Dan Emmons with the diving bid and roll. Langdon manages to still catch it. Now back to Lay, over to Langdon. Huston. A lot of under disc movement from Jacksonville right now. Dumps back to Huston. Malachek sealing off that around as much as possible. Huston still gets it off. Now double team on Lay. Lay breaks to find Huston. Now you have Roney open. And foul is called on Zach Riggins. Jacksonville advances 10 yards. Roney swings around to Lay. Matt Jackson sealing off that around. Back to Roney, over to Lay. Up over the top. And that is a score from Catron.
Excellent field vision and a great shot by Bobby Lay there. Defenders didn't like it. I think it was Jay Fruit over the top on that one. Did not expect him to put that blade over the stack. Wind kind of died down, gave him that opportunity to take that shot. One key player looks like missing from Jacksonville tonight is Cole Sullivan. He's one of their main shooters and main reset guys that they run a lot of their offense through. Bobby Lay taking good control of that point for them, and without Cole, they've had Lay take a huck for a score so far, and that pretty much qualifies as another huck, so he's going to be one of their shooters tonight. I believe Kuntz also has quite an arm on him as well for Jacksonville to actually keep running those guys into the deep space and taking shots.
So we're tied at threes, 5:27 left in the first quarter. That pull goes up from Jacksonville. Casey Hogg will receive. Chris Mazer advancing back around to Hogg. Swinging around to Freechild. Freechild to Mickle, gaining yards. Mickle around. There is a whistle on the play. Pick called. Dallas will maintain possession of the disc, but receive a 10-yard penalty. Mickle now with the disc, swings around to Freechild. Freechild to Mazer. Mazer to Freechild. Finds Kai Marshall on that continuation cut. Back to Freechild. Freechild, IO backhand, looking for Abe Coffin. Abe Coffin, great closing speed, and that's a score.
Excellent shot by Dylan Freechild there. That's the perfect throw you want to be putting to Abe Coffin. He's an excellent leaper, but he's better in the speed department, especially against some of these bigger Jacksonville guys. If you have space to put it to, lead him by 20 yards, he will run that down guaranteed.
And that backhand went exactly where Dylan Freechild wanted it to go.
Yeah, I believe it was a backhand force, and he throws this nice I.O. break that just sends it over to the right side of the field where the defenders are playing off their guys, and they're leaving those receivers open in that space depending on that force. Excellent fake, excellent shot by Dylan Freechild there.
Dallas takes the lead. They're 4 to Jacksonville's 3. 4:20 remaining in the first quarter. Drago Malfoy himself to pull. It's seriously, the resemblance is uncanny.
I mean, especially the look of determination in the eyes. That's what it is.
There is a whistle. Offsides called on Dallas. So Jacksonville will receive the disc at midfield. Significant field advantage.
Unfortunate for Dallas there. They're putting in guys like Brandon Melichek and that time Dylan Freechild that are going to give them big bomb and pulls, taking down the field, trying to get good defensive field position. You give that up on an offsides call, that whole plan gets shot.
Roney with the disc for Jacksonville. Break around to Lay. Up to Fairley. Fairley to Langdon. Working up that far sideline. Swings around to Lay. Back to Langdon. Around to Roney. Roney up the line. It's in the air. But there's Jordan Huston.
Jacksonville doing an excellent job running their resets on this vertical stack formation they have going right here. Like we talked about, Cole Sullivan being out for him right now. He's playing Waterboy and Hype Man on the sideline right now, trying to get his players up and ready to go. But the resets have definitely been there for Jacksonville thus far. Not a lot of pressure coming from the Dallas defenders back there.
Another notable Hype Man on the Jacksonville sideline is trick shot artist extraordinaire himself, Brody Smith. Another Dallas Roughneck from the championship team last season.
And I believe he's currently rostered with the Cannons. Yeah, Brody knows probably every player on the field, at least in some degree. So beyond that, he knows probably half the ultimate players in the entire sport. So he's ready and excited for this game.
And the pull goes up. Dallas to receive. Casey Hogg catching the pull to Mazer. Wind picking up ever so slightly. Swings around to Hogg. Over to Mazer. Dallas still in their end zone. Now Mickle with the disc. Mickle, flick Huck, looking for Freechild. That's floating. And Freystadter is there. St. John's with the disc. LaRoque. And Peterson. Peterson tips the disc into Jakeem Polk. Jakeem Polk on probably the third attempt or so catches it, and that's a break for Jacksonville.
I mean, as unfortunate as it is for Dallas, that's one of those catch your D's kind of a moments. Stanley Peterson had a great read on the disc there, made contact with it. Looked like he was just going to catch that one, but maybe he thought that Hakeem wasn't going to be able to react after he made that contact. Maybe he thought he'd hit the disc harder than he did. Hakeem obviously had to adjust and barely got it in time to get his hand in front of the disc and bounce it back up for him to get that second, third opportunity catch. But good reaction time on his part. I was going to say, up until that point, all the scores had been into what we presume is a headwind right now for both teams, and that's the first downwind break score that we've seen.
So Jacksonville opening up the north end zone as far as scoring goes. They take the lead for the first time in the game, 5-4. 3:10 remaining in the first period.
Darren, it's caught. Side stack, far side.
Mazer centering to Mickle.
Backwards.
Over to Mazer.
Thrower.
Up and around to Mickle.
Thrower. One back right. Give.
Back to Mazer.
One to your left, Gibson. In front, all in front, Gibson. All in front of you, Gibson.
The Mickle Freechild show. Now Freechild hangs onto the disc. Swings it over to Mazer. Back to Mickle.
Right now, you might have one sneaking behind. Chris, drop. Chris, drop.
Back to Mazer.
Chris, left. Chris, one left.
Backhand from Freechild to Hogg. Jacksonville staying in their zone. Now apparently switching over to their man look. Mickle up the line to Freechild. Freechild jumps in for the score.
And you know, Jacksonville doing a good job continuing to run the defense they came and planned for into the points, even when they've been scored on 2-3 times when they've been running that zone. Got a little bit caught in transition there, not actually finding the man that you really need to get onto, and nobody really there to help whoever was defending Dylan Freechild, who if he has the disc in the backfield on the goal line, he'll do a give and go, and he's one of the fastest quick first steps in the game. So he's going to probably beat most whoever's covering him at the time. But Jacksonville's sticking with the game plan, still trying to slow Dallas down. The best way to, for Dallas to get back in the game and get a bunch of points quickly is to, run a 4 or 5 shot play that scores quickly and gets them back on defense where they want to be so they can get breaks. Running that zone makes them have to go through every point with several throws.
Dallas tying with that score, still down a break. And Jacksonville with the disc, Lay in the center of the field, over around to Catron. Catron up the line to Langdon on the underneath. Langdon looking to get it off the sideline to Kunza. Kunza continues over to Roney. Floating to Langdon. Langdon's in scoring position, finds up the line. That's another score for Jordan Huston.
Definitely some confusion on the Dallas defense marks right now. It looked like a lot of them were forcing flat because they didn't necessarily know which side of the field to be forcing to, and consequently a lot of around break mark, just reaching passes, throwing those forehands from Jacksonville. I believe the mark was backhand towards the sideline far from us. But you see 3 or 4 passes in a row being those forehands throwing around the marks. And, the defenders upfield are guarding the other side of the guy. So if you're going to let a pass off to that side of the field, it's more than likely, unless your guy's baiting that shot, the offensive player is going to be open.
How difficult is it when one break throw gets off to then seal and contain that continue the rest of the field?
I mean, you've got 1 to 2 seconds of extreme danger zone. There is a lane to be thrown to. There is a continuation pass possibly there, especially if the receivers are timing their cuts well. A lot of those, though, were happening on stall 3 or 4 after a mark had been established, so Dallas needs to be a bit more active on their marks.
Jimmy Mickle with the disc on offense for Dallas. Kai Marshall going deep. Instead, swings over to Mazer. Mazer finds Freechild underneath. Around, some miscommunication. Mazer trying to keep it alive. That's out of reach. Now Jacksonville in their own red zone. LaRock finds an unguarded Kerner. That's another break.
And that's an uncommon gift from Dallas to Jacksonville right there. We've seen Dallas have some confusion, backfield turns in the past as they're trying to work between their handlers, but really Dallas needs to be better at getting back on defense after that backfield turn happens. They know Jacksonville wants to get quick points to get an early lead and keep it, and if you get backfield turns, that's the fastest way Jacksonville gets those.
So now Jacksonville takes the largest lead that we have had so far this game, 7-5. Just over a minute remaining in the first quarter. Dustin Travaglini to pull for Jacksonville. Dallas appearing to go into a side stack formation. Casey Hogg picks up the pull. Centers to Mazer. Finds Coffin underneath. A little tangled up. Jimmy Mickle breaks free. He's on the far sideline. Looks around for Mazer. Up to Langdon. Out of reach. Langdon stays with. Peterson stays with. And another miscommunication. 42 seconds remaining. LaRock picks up for Jacksonville on this near sideline. Now to Polk, to Gibson, and open underneath is Chard with the score.
Dallas definitely seeming frustrated after their turnovers in the backfield and whatnot. You got 2 miscommunications on dump passes in the backfield that was to an open guy when the disc was thrown. They're getting down on themselves right now, not getting back on defense. It's one of those things. You can be upset that you had a turnover, but at the same time, you don't have a lot of time to think about being upset. You need to get back on defense. Jacksonville threw 4 or 5 passes straight down what was the 4th sideline after the turnover, and guys were still trying to figure out who they were covering from Dallas. So need to be better in transition as far as like making it work.
So that brings Jacksonville's lead to 3 goals, 31.9 seconds left in the first quarter. The Dallas O-line on now for their 3rd consecutive point, albeit short points, but still on the field. Pull goes up. It's floating. Mazer catches. Jacksonville defense is right there. Mickle with the disc. Big up the line. You have Jay Frood closing in, and he bobbles. He bobbles and recovers, but by the time he recovered, it was actually out of bounds. Amazing closing speed from Frood.
Unfortunate that clap catch when you're laying out gets knocked out of your hands because your elbow hits the ground first.
Scuber over the top to Freystadter. Up to Perales. Perales with the IO flick. You have Gibson and Coffin. Hogg coming in underneath, and Coffin tips it out of the way. We're at 3 seconds remaining. Coffin, big backhand. If somehow this is a MAC pass, it could be scored, but no. So at the end of the first quarter, Dallas trailing by 3, Jacksonville ahead 8-5. We'll be back after a quick break. You're watching DallasRoughnecks.com. Welcome back to the Colony 5-Star Sports Complex, where after 1 quarter of play, Dallas trails Jacksonville 8-5. I'm Emmy Fitzgerald alongside Paul Burt. Paul, if you're Coach Pat Eberly right now, what adjustments are you making for the second quarter?
I mean, really, it's more about Dallas making sure they keep their composure and stay calm when Jacksonville is running these junky zones and putting like specifically designed defenses against Dallas. Jacksonville is playing this really smart as far as putting their players in positions where they can succeed. They've got giant guys to cover the deep space, and they've got intelligent guys to cover the lanes underneath. They've been burned running that zone a couple of times, but at the same time, Dallas having to throw 20, 30, 40 passes to score every time. Eventually, there's a missed throw every once in a while. Even if a throw is a 99% throw, hey, you threw 100 throws. That means you probably turned one over. So it's working out.
And Dylan Freechild back tonight, where he did miss several consecutive games, back in the handler core on the O-line. What kind of effect does that have, having new personnel?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a bunch of touches, and we've already seen a couple of miscues involving Dylan, whether he be the thrower or the receiver in the backfield. But at the same time, it's really kind of just that feeling it out, because we know Dylan's game is give, go, try and break through in that short game. And if you're not necessarily like used to it as a handler working with him, or if you didn't necessarily think that he wanted to throw that around pass instead of get that line strike from you, sometimes you'll have those miscues.
Dallas will start on defense in the second quarter. Dylan Larberg to pull for the Roughnecks. Next to him is brother Chris Larberg, who has been on the team all season. Certainly a wonderful pair to have. And that pull is up. Matt Jackson first down on the pull. Lay with the disc. Some handler movement in the backfield. Kunsa. Some contact from Ben Lewis. There's a whistle. The disc will advance 10 yards. Checked back in. Flick upfield. Langdon tracks that all the way in for the first score of the second quarter.
That's another example of Jacksonville doing what they do well and catching teams off guard doing it. That throw was put into a very narrow lane. It's a 40-50 yard throw up the field into a lane that's maybe 8 yards wide, even though you have an entire almost 50, over 50 yards width of field. Jacksonville is comfortable working in those tight lanes and throwing hucks even in that tight space. Dalton Smith, the defender there, had good positional defense overall. Got a little caught off guard because he maybe didn't expect that throw to come in that tight of a lane.
And you could hear the Jacksonville sideline yelling, "Take what they give you, take what they give you." And that certainly is what Jordan Huston did there. So now Jacksonville widens their lead to 4 goals, 9-5. Dallas O-line back on the field. Lots of hang time from that pull, allowing Jacksonville to set up their defensive positioning. Jimmy Mickle on the far sideline.
Hey, doesn't want to throw! Doesn't want to throw!
Tight in the lane to Mickle, back to Mazer. And Mazer answers with his own up the line. Freystadter, too tall.
Continue.
Now Jacksonville on offense. Kerner with the disc.
You gotta come in, Chris. You gotta come in, Chris.
Some work here on the near sideline. LaRoque. Swinging pass around, and Freystadter finds the end zone.
Dallas unfortunately playing right into Jacksonville's game on that particular point. Jacksonville, knowing Dallas is going into a headwind right there, they are sitting some of their defenders like Freystadter, like Polk, like a couple of other big guys on their team like Langdon, just putting those guys over the top in a poach position, leaving some of Dallas's receivers upfield open, playing a lot of switching defense in the downfield space. Dallas seeing that Abe Coffin, he's super fast and he's got his guy beat by 5 yards or whatnot. Yeah, he does, but Misha is sitting over the top, 20 yards to the side of that guy. If you tunnel vision on Coffin, take a shot up that lane, Misha is going to eat that up over Abe, because Abe has to have a perfectly timed jump and probably one of his best vertical leaps he's ever had just to get it over Misha standing still.
Dallas now on offense once again, down 5 goals. Still lots of ultimate to be played. Mickle in the center of the field to Mazer, back to Mickle. Finds Smith, back to Mickle, around to Mazer. Finds Smith in the middle to Freechild. Freechild up to Marshall. Marshall to Peterson, to Freechild. Over to Mazer. Dallas approaching, now in their red zone. Smith to Frood. Frood leading pass to Mazer. Mazer milks that in for the score.
Excellent job by Dallas getting back their composure, taking short shots to open guys. Jacksonville's still trying to play that poach defense, still trying to play in those lanes, but they're leaving guys open. Hopefully Dallas realizing that those over-the-top defenders are playing way back and giving a bunch of space. So if Dallas just spreads the field and sits in those open lanes, they can move the disc quickly and get past the Jacksonville front line to get into the end zone.
So now Dallas chipping away at their deficit, down by 4 goals. Dylan Freechild will stay on the field. He'll pull for Dallas. Just over 10 minutes remaining in the second quarter. And that pull is up. Lay now with the disc. Quick disc movement in the backfield. Langdon underneath. Over to Catron. Around to Kunsa. Around to Lay. Big around. And that's a score for Jacksonville.
Jacksonville seeming to really want to target the Malachek matchup right now. They do a good job of just resetting to a couple of their shooters and just put one of their best runners in the deep space to just work him and isolate that guy in space. Dallas needing to play a little bit of a switch defense, a little bit of help defense. Right now they're not necessarily on top of that game and needs to figure out how to accommodate that particular matchup.
Jordan Huston with his 3rd goal so far of the game. Jacksonville brings their lead back to 5. They're up 11-6, 9:37 remaining in the second quarter. Travaglini to pull for Jacksonville. Hogg catching. Now to Mazer. Marshall streaks across the front. Freechild underneath.
Cover deep,
Backhand goes up for Marshall. He is covered. And he won't be able to get it. St. John's in good defensive positioning.
Marshall burning Misha on that particular point, but definitely good team defense by Jacksonville in the deep space.
Now Jacksonville will work up the entire field. Over to Travaglini. Now St. John's to McLevy. And Jacksonville calls a timeout.
Good call by the Jacksonville sideline. It's an excellent time to be using your timeouts. You don't have a ton of pressure, but your offense isn't quite set up. Maybe you don't have necessarily your best thrower with the disc right now, or didn't have a good reset for him in position. So take your time, keep your composure. You're going in the win. You may be able to get another break out of this, so take advantage of having the timeouts when you have them.
So if you're Dallas, do you keep your O-line on the field or you sub it out for a D-line?
I would definitely think you take a few substitutions here. You have to honor the fact that Jacksonville does have the disc right now, and maybe you can get a good matchup. If you put some of your best defenders, maybe you get a backfield turn or whatnot, or a quick turn, you can catch Jacksonville off guard, get this point over quick. And if those defenders are, if they make a play, they start a fire for Dallas, and they consequently get back on defense on the next point after that, and you can start generating a run.
So it looks like Dallas did do what you said they were going to do, Paul. Made some substitutions. Dan Emmons and Jay Frood coming on the field. Certainly two very athletic threats.
Two of their leading defenders.
In fact, Jay Frood, one of the leaders in the entire league in blocks.
I believe he's one of the leaders in the league in his plus-minus as well.
So Bobby Lay with the disc for Jacksonville. He's marked by Dylan Freechild. Freechild staying close to Lay. On this near sideline, big swing around. That's floating in the air. Jay Frood says, that's my disc. Over to Jimmy Mickle. Mickle on the far sideline, up the line to Smith. Jacksonville sealing in the backhand. Dishes around to Mickle. Back over to Smith. Smith to Frood. Frood over to back to Smith. Back to Frood. Counts getting high. Miscommunication. Just out of the reach of Smith. Jacksonville will get the disc back. Fairly around to Kunsa. Inside to Roney. Roney looking around for Lay. Lay up the line to Roney. Roney over to Fairley. Up the line, looking around for Roney. There is a whistle on the play. Foul called on Dalton Smith. Jacksonville will advance 10 yards. Roney will keep the disc for Jacksonville. Clock is still moving. We're around the 7-minute mark in the second quarter. It's around. Catron back over to Roney. Around to Catron. Back to Roney. Far sideline. Up the line. And there's Roney with the score.
Another break for Jacksonville on that one. Dallas trying to figure things out as far as defensively. They have a bunch of switches. Jacksonville has got all kinds of energy right now. They know they're up on these guys. They know they got Dallas in a bit of a funk. That's just more fuel for the fire. Jacksonville is going to ride their energy as much as possible, and anything they can get as far as building, the momentum on this one is going to really help them get through the end of this game. If they have lulls in their offense, if they have, eventually Dallas is going to get a break back, and Jacksonville has to persevere to finish the game if they want to win. Given this nice, comfortable lead right now, it makes that a lot easier for them.
And Jacksonville with a 6-point advantage over Dallas. They're 12 to Dallas's 6.
6:30.
Travaglini with that pull up for Dallas. Casey Hogg back to receive the pull. Mickle tightly guarded. Hogg manages to get it to Mickle. Still in the end zone. Swings around to Hogg. Hogg over to Marshall.
Not a thrower, not a thrower, not a thrower.
Marshall puts that up in the air. Looking for Mazer. Mazer asking for the call, doesn't get it. Travaglini now with the rest of the Cannons advancing upfield. Freystadter.
And another one, Tuba. If it looks freaky, Tuba. If it looks freaky.
Now on the goal line. And that little dish was bobbled. Mickle puts up a big backhand, is blocked by LaRock. Now Freystadter, whistle called. Second timeout taken by Jacksonville.
Excellent call again by the Jacksonville sideline right there. This is obviously an emotional point, obviously a very physical, a very aggressive point for both teams. Maybe some bad decisions on either side of the disc right now. You don't want the adrenaline to get the best of you. Jacksonville has the disc on the goal line. Get a more offensive squad focused on this. You've already got your second D of the point. You know you got these guys against the ropes. Make sure you can just stick this point in and take advantage. You only have maybe just over 5 minutes left in the half. You'll get more timeouts after the half expires. Good call.
Uncharacteristic block on Jimmy Mickle's huck as well. You don't see that very often.
I mean, I'm not exactly sure what receiver he saw downfield, but obviously he was very convinced. And the Jacksonville defender who blocked that may be regretting it later on if he has some kind of welt on his arm, but at the same time.
sure that was going at sizable speed. But great defensive stand there from Jacksonville. So now they'll be on offense. Roney with the disc, number 1, being marked by Dallas's number 1, Jason Holleran, who is coincidentally also from Florida. Had a sizable fan showing when Dallas played away in Jacksonville. Went to Florida State. Isolation play with Jeremy Langdon isolated. He's guarded by Joel Clutton. He trips. Lay catches that around. And Huston, 4th goal of the game to that front corner. That's his sweet spot of the day.
Huston definitely being an aggressive receiver for Jacksonville right now. He has 4 goals for a reason. He's extremely fast, and he's often been and wound up with a good matchup against maybe one of Dallas's more handler-centric players, not necessarily a receiver coverage type of person, because people don't necessarily give him credit. Right now, he's taking advantage and being very active for his team, catching a lot of goals.
And Jacksonville recovering when Langdon slipped on that isolation play. How important is that for the whole team to kind of stay heads up? And if you're on defense, to be aware that just because you're in the stack, you might get that disc.
Right. I mean, isolation plays more often than not aren't necessarily set up to get that guy the disc. They're set up to get a reset and some flow out of your offense, and he's just the guy that generates the initial motion. So Langdon slipping there, he fell to the ground, but at that point where he fell to the ground, the handler had already looked to his dump, so he was already taking the pass to swing the disc across the field.
So Dallas now trailing 13-6, 5:30 left in the first half. Jacksonville staying in the zone look. Smith, and there's a whistle. Smith will advance 10 yards.
Hey, fire, fire, fire!
That disc is in.
Backhand!
Jacksonville crumbling to a person defense. Freechild on the far sideline. Finds Mickle. Mickle around to Emmons, and that's a goal.
Excellent work using the break space in the backfield by the Dallas Roughnecks, hitting Mickle in the middle of the field with a forehand around break mark look. That's one of his favorite throws, and Dan Emmons is probably one of his favorite receivers to have all kinds of space to throw to. Jacksonville throwing that junky zone look again. Honestly, almost every defense that they have thrown against Dallas thus far has been some variation of a lane poach or a zone or an over-the-top poach and whatnot. And really, it's Jacksonville putting their specific guys that they know have very specific strengths in those positions where they can have success. They know Dallas is an extremely talented team, and across the board man-for-man matchup, you won't necessarily just win if you just put guys on, just match guys up by height or speed or whatever and try and beat them. Dallas is going to run you on that one and probably take advantage of wherever they can. Jacksonville setting their guys up in positions where they know that guy can play deep defense, and they know their shorter guys can play good lane defense. They are setting themselves up for success.
Dallas D-line now amped to be on the field. That pull goes out of bounds, so Jacksonville will receive it at the brick mark, which you see noted on the field where Lay will take the disc. He finds Roney, currently unguarded. Jackson coming up over to Catron. Catron on the near sideline, guarded by Roney. Roney with the disc, double teamed, finds Catron, finds Lay despite the layout attempt. And a whistle called on that layout contact. Lay will keep the disc. Gives favorable positioning to Jacksonville, around to Langdon. Langdon still with the disc, back over to Roney. That's up in the air. And Huston, once again, the guy for Jacksonville.
And really, you see Jacksonville setting up in the middle of the field with their vertical stack there. They had a lot of good work in the backfield and resets, but Huston is sitting on the back of the stack as their go-to guy. As they're making these dump passes, as they're making these swing passes, Huston is they're setting Huston up to get the disc on one corner of the end zone or the other corner of the end zone. If he doesn't get it, we're going to run 3 or 4 reset passes and just hit that guy again.
So Dallas O-line back on the field. 14-7, Jacksonville. 3:55 remaining in the first half. Some contact calls on Dallas, certainly giving free yardage to Jacksonville.
They've been aggressive plays by Dallas, but I mean, there haven't been any kind of malicious contact or whatnot. That foul call right there, you nicked the guy's hand as he was making the catch. Okay, you gave it to him, I'm sorry. But at the same time, didn't hit the body, didn't make an aggressive play towards the player.
Smith around to Freechild. Freechild to Coffin. Coffin over to Mickle. Mickle's fakes around to Freechild. Freechild continues to Mazer. Mazer back around to Freechild. Finds Smith on the under. Over to Mickle. Back to Freechild. Freechild over to Mazer. Mazer still outside the goal line. Sees Peterson unguarded, and that's a score.
And Dallas scoring there like they've scored all their other points except for 1 or 2 hucks tonight. They do a really good job working the underspace. Jacksonville running this double over-the-top poach because they have Misha and they have Polk over the top, just covering opposite sides of the field and whatnot. That leaves some of your receivers open, and if that guy gets it, he catches a disc, drops it back to a handler, he's open because the 2 poaches over the top are 10, 15, maybe 20 yards deep of that receiver because they don't care if he gets it. They want Dallas to be throwing more passes, and they know that if the guy that I'm assigned to, who's a receiver, gets the disc, he probably doesn't necessarily have the best throws to just hit the next guy. Even though Dallas is full of talent, at the same time they have a system and they want players to be playing within their roles.
3:07 left in the first half. Jacksonville up 14. Dallas is 8. Lewis and Larberg quick down on defense. Jacksonville working it up. Catron over to Langdon. Langdon up to Huston. Huston double teamed, still gets it off to Lay. Lay looking for Langdon. Langdon up to Kunsa. Kunsa now over to Roney. Hammer to Huston.
Jacksonville being aggressive with their shots again. At this point in the game, they have a very sizable lead, and they have a lot of that. What a lot of teams refer to as they have swagger about their throws. They will take a shot that is potentially risky, potentially even not advisable at all. But at the same time, they know, you know what? If we turn it over, if Dallas scores this point, we've got several more to give, and they're relaxed. They're playing a game very comfortably. They're taking shots to receivers that are going to, that's a break mark side of the field, so he's not necessarily covered quite as tightly on that corner. The throw might not have been exactly what they wanted, but at the same time, they know they have an athlete that can adjust and save it.
Jordan Huston with his 6th goal of the game with less than 1/2 of play so far. 2:33. The lead still 7. Dallas offense on the field. Travaglini with the pull going up. Mazer to catch. And that did land out, so Dallas will receive it at the brick mark. Mazer with the disc. Kind of a loose double team in that same zone look. He breaks around to Mickle. Mickle back around to Mazer. To Coffin. To Mickle. Swings around to Mazer. Mazer goes across to Freechild. Freechild finds an opening with Smith. Back to Freechild. Over to Mickle. Freechild clears. Hogg underneath instead. Smith unguarded, as is Mazer. Now Hogg to Mazer. Swinging around, looking for Peterson, and that's a score.
Jacksonville looking to run a trap defense in that zone on that particular point. Anytime the disc got close to a sideline, you hear their players on the sideline screaming, now, 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 now. They want to set the trap. Fortunately for Dallas, they were quick enough to react to the fact that and know that Jacksonville is looking to set this side force, whether it be towards this near sideline or the far sideline, and they get the disc off that sideline within 1 or 2 seconds. And when Dallas had the disc 15 yards or so from the sideline, there was an easy dump off towards the sideline, but they often enough took a break mark throw towards the other side to just make sure they weren't approaching a sideline and had options in the lanes.
So now 15-9, 150 remaining in the first half. Peterson with that score was his 4th goal of the game so far, already racking up some points himself. Malachek with a pull for Dallas. Riggins and Hernandez quick down on defense. Kunsa centers to Lay. Back over to Kunsa. Back to Lay. Lay out attempt. Lay still with the sticky hands around to Kunsa. Huston underneath. Goes up the line to Roney. Roney, big around for Kunsa. Malachek stealing off, still gets it to Huston. Huston to Langdon. Langdon to Lay, back to Langdon. Give and go. Swings around. And Huston with probably his 4th consecutive goal for Jacksonville.
And I mean, I don't think he has a single assist on the night. He's thrown almost nothing but dump passes the entire time, but he is definitely a worker for their offense right now. Dallas prioritizing other matchups like Langdon, like Misha, like Polk, like Bobby Lay, trying to cause pressure on the resets for Jacksonville, but at the same time, if you got a guy working that much in the deep space and for your upfield resets, I mean, you always have a receiver that's going to get open. He's extremely fast, and he's making plays for Jacksonville right now.
This 7-point deficit is the largest deficit Dallas has ever had at home in their franchise history. Certainly, there is over a half of play to remain that remains to be played, plenty of ultimate. And the pull goes up from Jacksonville.
Hey, this point! Come on, D! No line! No line!
Mazer to Smith.
No line! 1 minute to play catch. Hold it there. Hey, hard mark! Hard mark! Hey, under,
Marshall with the disc.
Hand block! Hand block!
We're under a minute now. Nickel. Nobody for Dallas cutting deep at the moment. 43 seconds. Around to Hogg. Smith underneath.
Hands out! Hands out! Hands out!
To Marshall. Marshall on the far sideline. 30 seconds remaining. Leading pass back to Marshall. Around to Hogg. 20 seconds remaining. Now Peterson, not in. Up the line. And that's a score for Dallas. Peterson to Smith.
Ideally for Dallas, that'll be the last score of the half. Talk about it in several of our broadcasts thus far. If you're the last team to score in the quarter, you're getting yourself essentially a half break because you're not allowing the other team the opportunity to respond when their offense is on the field. So we'll see how prevent defense can work for Dallas with these last 15 or so seconds left in the half.
15 seconds, certainly enough time for a team to score, and the clock doesn't start until the player catches the pull and makes a movement.
Right. Until it may even be their first throw.
So Dallas with a tall D-line out on the field, notable height in Joel Clutton and Dan Emmons. Matt Jackson with both of his good arms, always fast, quick down on the pull. Clock is ticking. Catron with the disc. We're at 10 seconds, under 10 seconds. Now Roney, 5 seconds. And the disc goes up. If it's caught, this is a goal. Lots of jump balls. And Joel Clutton comes down with a crucial block to end the first half. Dallas trails 16-10. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll have more action here on DallasRoughnecks.com.
Another score. 5-0 Radicals.
Else along with the huge crowd. Henderson can't hang on, and the Riptide will get back. Travel was called. Huge D by Reed Henderson gets it back. Mark Burton sends it deep, Malik along, gets the goal. It's a hard fought and well earned goal.
Take me to a place that I won't go. Show me love that I don't know. 'Cause they can't love me. They can't love me like you don't. Take me to a place that I won't go. Show me love that I don't know. 'Cause they can't love me.
Mickle going deep. Great timing of his cut. Leonard to Smith, still in the air. Rude ends up intercepting. Hernandez puts that up to Everly. That's floating, and Everly snatches that out of the air. Three seconds left. Bennett to Smith, and that's a goal. That goal is good. A&M brother connection.
Yeah.
That's a hammer throw by Julie Malachek to Carrie Lucy Culp, giving her the bookends on that point.
The air, we have Hogg versus Williams, and that sails over, but Hogg, the diving attempt, keeps it alive. Not in. He's an unguarded Frood. Frood sends it. You have Emmons and Vickroy, and Emmons tracking down the score.
Excellent body position by Emmons, making sure he's going to get to the space. And
underneath, floating in the air, Olsen looking for Mickle, but Mickle with the block. Both Slack and Mickle going deep. Throw goes up. You have Mickle on a 2-on-1, and extension grab. Jimmy Mickle with the score.
another characteristic perfect throw to throw to Jimmy Mickle. He's one of those guys, a floating disc that he has to get a good drop step and jump over somebody. He will get that the majority of the time.
Left. Flick goes up. Larberg on Williams. Larberg with that extension grab.
And with 30 seconds left in the quarter, getting that possession, Dallas scores in about 11 seconds of offense, mostly through guys that are typically receivers for them. Chris Larberg, Thomas Slack, Jay Frood. These guys are upfield players, but because they know they want to score fast, they're looking for it to be in the continuation after the next throw is completed.
Twice the Ice is your essential stop for your weekend activities. With 3 convenient locations in the Little Elm and Frisco area, and just like our name says, we offer twice the amount of ice sold at other stores. That's 20 pounds of fresh, clean ice delivered 24/7 in a bag, or in your cooler to chill your favorite beverages, or in your bath for those aching muscles. We've always got your ice, and because we manufacture and package our ice and water on site, our price always beats the competition. Delivery services are also available, so check us out at besticetogo.com for the location nearest you.
Welcome back to the Colony 5-Star Sports Complex, where at halftime, Dallas trails Jacksonville 16-10. I'm Emmy Fitzgerald alongside Paul Burt. Great sunset tonight. If you're Dallas, how do you maintain the mental composure to stage a comeback?
Well, I mean, it's easy to get really frustrated in a position that Dallas is in right now. They know their team is stacked with talent from top to bottom. They do not like the performance they're currently having right now. They should absolutely not be excited about where they're sitting. Jacksonville's been playing an extremely intelligent game as far as knowing how to set their guys up for success against Dallas's talent thus far. Dallas going into that halftime, you know, they sat down, they got the huddle, they brought out the whiteboard, they know exactly what they need to change, and they spent a good 5-10 minutes going over that, taking, you know, a concentrated effort on figuring out exactly where they're getting beat thus far and what they can do to accommodate those deficiencies. You don't want to just go into a halftime and start screaming at each other thinking, man, we're just not playing hard enough. Man, we're just not running hard enough. They're running pretty hard. They are working their roles as best they can, but they're playing into Jacksonville's game right now. Jacksonville going into that halftime went over to the bench, sat down, got their adrenaline levels back down because they know they'll be able to hype themselves back up, but they want to make sure that they realize exactly the position they're in. They have a solid lead on Dallas right now, and they can maintain this to possibly get themselves a home field advantage come the playoffs.
Now, if you are Dallas, you have your D-lines. Brandon Malachek has been a target, it seems like, when Dallas is on defense. How do you manage then your matchup? Somebody like Jordan Huston, typically a role player, currently leading Jacksonville with 7 goals.
Well, the biggest thing that Jacksonville's been taking advantage of against Dallas as a whole has been the marks. They've been swinging the disc across the field, giving themselves a lot of different angles to attack, and that just lets Huston have a field day no matter who's covered him. His latter few scores in the first half were against Jay Fruit, one of the best defenders in the league. If you're having trouble containing the marks, if you get broken on the first throw, okay, good throwers are going to break some marks, but if you can't contain, then that guy who is typically a role player is just getting open by 10, 20 yards at a time because you're not maintaining your defense. And positionally, you just can't play against that.
So Dallas offense had a couple miscues in the handler set. Then they did have an offsides that gave Jacksonville some favorable yardage positioning. What do you think they really need to do then to stop any breaks from their side, let the D-line try and convert?
All right, as far as their offense is concerned, Jacksonville, we talked about playing a lot of junk defense, a lot of lane poaching, and having their bigger guys sitting over the top. It's not necessarily a full zone in a lot of the cases. They are just sitting those couple of guys over the top to cover the deep space, but they're still covering just some lanes really close to the disc and leaving areas open. If Dallas can recognize that in their receiver line, they can find those spaces, get open for easy shots upfield, as they've done most of the time. Not all of the time, obviously, but most of the time. They could get resets upfield as opposed to in the backfield, which is the typical, like, I want to throw a dump pass, I want to reset back to a thrower, I'll throw a dump pass back into the backfield. But if your receivers can find spots in the upfield positions because of all the poaching and all the playing off players, you can gain yardage and get your stall count resets.
So the buzzer has sounded for halftime. That means the third quarter is underway. Dallas will receive to start on offense for the second half. Travaglini with the pull. Going to Dalton Smith. Notably absent tonight is Matt Bennett. Over to Freechild. Freechild under to Mickle. Mickle around to Coffin. Coffin finds Smith underneath. Up the line to Coffin.
Under.
Coffin inside flick over to Hogg.
Close. Hands wide.
Hogg dishes to Freechild.
Dustin, close. Dustin.
Back around to Hogg. Mazer with the around.
Close. James, upfield.
Blady backhand over to Mickle. Mickle answers with another blade around to Smith for the first goal of the second half.
Dallas doing a good job there offensively, setting their stack up in the very center of an extremely wide field, not letting Jacksonville necessarily poach into spaces by setting your stack in the very middle of the field and just letting guys get isolated on the sides of it. Those poaches from Jacksonville didn't necessarily work out, and all that help defense that Jacksonville's been doing thus far didn't really work in their favor because Dallas was able to work the unders and work the resets. Maybe a couple of scary resets, but at the same time, it did work out for Dallas.
Jacksonville still with a 5-goal lead, but Dallas will be the first to score in this second half. 55 seconds on that first point. Malachek to pull for Dallas.
Dallas likely trying to get really good field position on this pull again with Malachek throwing bombs down the field.
And that pull goes pretty much coast to coast. Lay now with the disc. Langdon underneath. Huston over to Catron. Catron backhand to Fairley. Fairley up to Roney. Roney around to Lay. Lay swinging around. Familiar face, Catron.
Bobby Lay having a bit of a breakout game today. That's the second or third time he's thrown these forehand blades into a headwind, just finding a guy 30 yards, not necessarily upfield, but across the field at the same time, hitting the guy with only maybe 2 or 3 yards left before he hits the sideline.
And that's Lay's 5th assist of the game.
And I believe another goal for Huston.
Yes, that would bring Huston to 8 goals. Jacksonville leads still at 6. 10:32 remaining in the third quarter. Travaglini to pull again for the Cannons. That goes to the corner of the end zone and out. So Smith will receive the disc at the brick mark.
Something about him not being cool.
Guys back, Jay.
Let's go, Jock. Let's go, Jock. Let's go, The Rock.
See Freystadter ready to be on the mark. It's a big mark for Smith to throw around.
Under. Game's up.
Finds Freechild underneath. Freechild with those quick stutter steps to get open. Now Mickle. Mickle swings. Freechild back to Mickle to keep it on that force side. Up the line to Smith. Count's getting high. Swings around. Stall called.
Dallas getting a little bit flustered in their resets, thinking that they had more options earlier than they did.
A bit of commotion on the field. Integrity rule called from Jacksonville. Dallas is back on offense. High release flick in the air. Mickle tracks down. IO flick to Mazer. Mazer swinging around. Coffin. There's a score.
Jacksonville looking to play a lot of that help defense as the throw came over to Jimmy for that break mark, swinging the disc across the field. Got caught there with all the players shifting over towards this side of the field where all the break mark throws are. Coffin sneaks over there on the forehand side, and he's kind of a smaller guy, so it's hard to necessarily keep track of him, especially since he's so quick. And it was a bit of a sharp throw, but at the same time, he's really fast to make up that distance.
Excellent read from Coffin. Great sportsmanship from Dustin Travaglini, I believe, is who called the integrity foul.
We've seen good spirit from both teams this evening. There's been a couple of bids where players, you could see in the players' eyes they wanted to make that bid, but they would have to basically go through a guy's shoulder to get to it, and they've held back.
Kevin Christian with the pull for Dallas. Now Lay, mainstay of the Jacksonville offense, with the disc. Backhand goes up, looking for Langdon. It's still floating. Langdon, it tips off of Langdon's hands. He bids to get it on the second attempt and actually makes the score.
I mean, that's one of those things. He had made a good cut, and it was a good throw. He was going to receive that disc had he not bobbled it in the first place, but sometimes you get a little bit lucky on those breaks every once in a while, and even though he didn't necessarily get the grab that should have come easy for him, he had the determination to finish the play.
Langdon with the never-give-up attitude. Bobby Lay with his 6th assist of the game. Jacksonville maintains their 6-goal lead. 9:10 left in the third quarter.
Dallas needs to keep in mind that Jacksonville, as they did the last time these two teams met, Jacksonville is very good at managing a clock if given the opportunity to do so. So while you still have time in the game, you need to maybe possibly take some risks in order to get some early breaks and make it a tighter margin.
That pulls up. Jacksonville certainly hustling down. Smith with the disc. There's a whistle. Foul called on Andrew Carlton. Smith will keep the disc. Dishes over to Mickle. Needles it to Freechild. Freechild back to Mickle. Hammer around to Mazer. Uncovered. Inside to Freechild. To Coffin. To Freechild. Continuation to Mickle. Keeps that going to Smith. Smith up and around. Freechild keeps that disc in bounds.
Working out for Dallas on that particular point. One thing to notice about Dallas's offense right now, they have a lot of guys working under next to the disc. They only have Stanley Peterson on that particular point working in the deep space, and that just lets Misha Freestyle just stay next to that guy, or stay near that guy, not necessarily next to that guy because you still have to cover the entire field, but at the same time, they're not challenging him with players in space right now. They're crowding a lot underneath. It worked out for them on that point because Jacksonville, as a result of seeing all of Dallas's players in the short game, in the dump space, their defenders cheat up, got crept up a little bit too much, and Freechild, recognizing that once all the defenders had crept up, he sneaks into the deep space, even though he has that bright, shining hair. Somehow they lost him.
So Frood to pull for Dallas. 8:28 left in the third. 5-point advantage for Jacksonville. Bobby Lay with the disc. Swings around to Roney. Some confusion. Whistle called. Off-disc foul called on Jacksonville. So they will move back yardage, maintain possession. Kunsa over to Roney. Jay Frood's bid attempt, no good. Roney around to Catron. Catron to Kunsa. Catron underneath. Up the line to Langdon. Langdon on the near sideline looking to break around. Finds Kunsa. Over to Catron. Back to Langdon. Catron. Lots of people right around the disc. Lay. Up the line. Roney. Whistle called. That's a foul on Dalton Smith. Roney will stay in line where he is in the end zone, but advance 10 yards. Swings around to Lay. And surprise, surprise, Lay to Catron. That's a Jacksonville goal. Lay to Huston.
Huston, yes.
How could I have messed that up?
Story of the evening. Bobby Lay taking these blade shots around the mark, which do not float that much, into Huston, who's extremely fast and can make up that ground even though the disc is coming in a little bit hot. Dallas getting caught, unfortunately, playing a little bit over the top maybe or something, because Jacksonville working these underpasses again and again and again down a four sideline, and then the only break mark throws that Jacksonville is throwing have been these big 30-yard crossfields to guys that are open because of some poach or some odd switch that Dallas is trying to recover from. Dallas needs to put more pressure on the underneaths and basically bait Jacksonville into taking those shots and then have help over the top, as Jacksonville has proven to work this evening.
So just under 7 minutes left in the third quarter. Malachek on offense. Mickle, you have Freechild going deep. Coffin underneath, unguarded. Freechild still going deep. Coffin, counts getting high, swings around to Malachek. Malachek under to Peterson. Peterson around to Mickle. Mickle unguarded. Finds Peterson. Back to Mickle. Around to Malachek. Malachek swings around to Coffin. Dallas in the red zone. Coffin on this near sideline. Swings to Mickle. Mickle fakes overhead. And there's Casey Hogg for the score.
Dallas doing a good job getting into their end zone offense there. As far as the beginning of the point, with their offense with much more field to work with, finally taking advantage of the fact that Jacksonville is running a poach switching defense with guys sitting way over the top. How do you beat a defense that just poaches guys, 10, 20 yards over the top? You send some receiver isolated into the deep space, get that poach to come over and help, and catch the fact that Jacksonville now has two guys guarding that one player on your offense that's far away from the disc for an easy 15, 20-yard gainer to somebody else coming under.
So 19-14, Jacksonville leading. 6 minutes left in the third quarter. We're so glad you're tuned in to watch. This is some exciting ultimate we're watching right now. Dylan Larberg to pull for Dallas. Chris Larberg, Ben Lewis, fast down on the pull. Almost out of reach of Bobby Lay, but he manages to keep possession. Underneath to Langdon. Langdon launches a backhand, looking for Huston. You've got you had Jackson and Larberg, but Huston, 10th goal of the game.
Definitely what Dallas needs to be doing in terms of trying to get quick turns out of Jacksonville. They had two defenders under the disc that's playing team defense. Both of those guys had a potential play on this jump ball, but right now Jacksonville's still using that swagger, and Huston just making plays left and right. He has got all kinds of confidence right now, and he is playing that jump ball game.
Breakout game for Jordan Huston, although I'm sure his teammates would say, this is him every day.
He does that every practice.
That's
I don't know what you're talking about.
And that 6-point lead stands. Jacksonville hitting the 20-goal mark to Dallas's 14. Dallas O-line back on the field. Have Peterson chewing on his jersey. You know what that means. That means he's tuned in the zone, ready to go. That pull goes up. Mazer catching. Over to Smith. Back to Freechild, to Coffin, to Freechild, to Malachek. Peterson going deep. Mazer underneath, swinging around. Two swings around from Coffin, then Coffin to Smith. That's a quick score for Dallas.
More success from Dallas working the short game. They didn't really even have to break the mark that much after the first couple of passes because they kept Jacksonville on their heels, just running these 10, 15-yard passes to guys that weren't covered because Jacksonville's constantly in transition on this point. After the first 2 or 3 throws that got into the middle of the field, Jacksonville's like, okay, let's switch to a man quick. We just wanted to kill their initiator. But if you can never get back on the guys and Dallas keeps pushing up the field to give continuation passes, you're constantly on your heels and unable to contain.
Dallas really needing a defensive break or 5 about now. With the 5, we're hovering around the 5-goal, 6-goal margin.
They do have an opportunity to reduce the lead Jacksonville has right here, and with time to get more.
Frood pulling. Bergen's quick down on the pull. He's covering. Peterson getting on Lay. Round to Kunza, and Peterson with the interception to Jackson for the break.
Dallas putting pressure on the resets and baiting Jacksonville into throwing hucks with guys helping over the top. Jacksonville was extremely spread out right there. Their throwers don't necessarily have the entire field range to take those shots into what is still a little bit of a headwind, and maybe took a little risky reset there. You get backfield turns, you score. That point took maybe 5 seconds of actual game time to score and get back on another D-line on the field to get your run going.
Certainly a momentum booster for the Roughnecks.
And you see their team charged in the field afterwards. They are looking to light the fire as best they can.
Jacksonville still with a 4-goal lead. 5:09 left in the third. They're 20 to Dallas's 16. Jay Frood pulling for Dallas.
All right, get it back, go. Get it back, go. Let's do it now.
Ben Lewis, Chris Larberg meeting the pull. Doesn't happen often. Lay now with the disc. He launches right away, looking for Langdon. Overthrows Langdon. Now Dallas with possession. Kevin Christian picking up. Dallas will have to work it up full field. Dallas calls a timeout.
Jacksonville possibly feeling a little bit of the pressure right now. Like we talked about, thus far they've had all kinds of swagger in their game and taking shots with confidence to open receivers that are making good cuts into space. But Dallas gets a break. Their entire sideline comes running on the field. The stands erupt. The momentum is starting to shift into Dallas's favor right now. Jacksonville having a little bit of trouble maintaining when they get that kind of pressure on their game. Dallas being very smart right now, taking this timeout, being like, all right, we got to go the full field. We have great field position in the very center of the field. We have a lot of options. We know that Jacksonville is going to try and bait us into doing something we probably don't need to be doing. And the O-line has figured out what they need to do to score thus far. They've figured out what traps they've fallen into as far as the first half and then the third quarter. They're working it out, and they've been able to consistently score as so far this quarter, and getting them on the field is going to be really advantageous for Dallas.
We hope you're enjoying the drone footage that we've incorporated into our broadcast. Really neat to see a bird's eye view of the field. Great folks at Fulcrum Media making that happen. Mazer will pick up the disc for Dallas. Dallas appearing to be in kind of a horizontal stack.
It's in. James, not coming. James, up. Lower.
Finds Freechild. High release to Mickle. Mickle under to Smith. Smith to Mickle. Mickle to Coffin. That's high in the air. The St. LaRock now with the disc for Jacksonville. Freystadter underneath. And that is overthrown to Andrew McKelvey.
Another rush shot Jacksonville probably didn't need to take, but feeling they need to try and score this fast so that they can relieve some of this pressure from the Dallas defense.
Mazer picking up on the near sideline, swings around to Smith, over, across to Malachek. Malachek to Coffin. Coffin back around to Malachek. I.O. to Mazer. Backhand for Freechild. Freechild so fast. That is another score for Dallas.
And another break going into the wind, and that Dallas started that point on defense, so they are clawing their way back into this game. Jacksonville got caught using some of their big guys that they've had poaching over the top thus far. Those matchups ended up in the handler core, or matched up against the handler core of Dallas, hoping that they could get a quick turn and then those deep guys would take off. But because those big, deep defenders were in the backfield, Dallas has a lot more space to work with and can throw these deep shots to guys that are a little bit shorter but extremely good leapers and great speed like Abe Coffin and Dylan Freechild. Consequently worked out for him on that point.
Excellent leapers, no doubt. Chris Mazur with his 5th assist of the game, throwing that backhand huck. Dallas is still trailing, but has narrowed the lead to 3, 17-20. Jay Frood pulls. That will float and land out of bounds. Jacksonville will take the disc at the brick mark.
And no one is safe from the not a puller call from the sidelines.
So savage. Roney picking up Jacksonville in the vertical stack. Catron off the 1. Looks around, back to Roney. Roney to Catron. Catron to Roney. Roney swinging around to Lay. Lay up the line to Roney. Roney swings around. Back to Roney. Swing to Langdon. Langdon out of reach for Lay. And Jackson picking up. And there's a whistle. Whistle on the play. Refs are conferring near the south end zone. The refs will continue to confer with head ref Julie Gordon.
See Jacksonville's sideline pleading with the refs about something. I'm not exactly certain what they're looking for as far as a call is concerned.
And certainly every coaching staff in the league tries their best lobbying attempt against these refs.
You do have to try and be involved as much as you possibly can at every point in the game, not just strategically, but actively.
Hands good, hands dig in. Let's get it back. Hey, don't worry about the clock, get it back.
Jackson will maintain possession of the disc. 3:15 remaining in the third quarter. Looks and finds Peterson. Peterson to Jackson. Jackson over the top to Peterson. Peterson trying to stay in bounds. He does. Woo, that's a score.
Finds a fan right afterwards. That's a first-hand experience right there. Matt Jackson generating resets and good shots down the field to open receivers. That's one of the things he's been good at the entire season and all of last season. It's a shame that he hasn't been able to be more involved throughout previous games this season, but finally hitting his stride, finally getting back to his healthy position, giving that D-line the stability they need to finish points and score after you get Ds.
Dallas slowly chipping away at that Jacksonville lead. Jacksonville still with a 2-goal lead, 2:54 left in the third quarter. Dallas knocking on that door. Jimmy Mickle on the field for defense.
Jimmy Mickle, an excellent leaper in his own right. If Dallas plays the team defense they've been doing thus far to get the turnovers from Jacksonville, he is absolutely one of the guys they want to be covering over the top.
We don't have 11 Lords leaping, but we have a few. We have a few. Ben Lewis, quick down on that pole. He's guarding the dump attempt. Roney finds Langdon instead. Huston with the disc on the near sideline, guarded by Dylan Larberg. Around to Roney. Roney out of reach. That disc is live, falls on the ground. Jimmy Mickle saying, slow down, guys. Slow down. Clock is ticking. Mickle on the near sideline. Out of reach of Kevin Christian and Jay Frood. Jacksonville will pick up. 2 minutes left. That is up in the air, but caught. LaRock underneath to Huston. Huston around to Roney. Roney, Huston with the over-the-top hammer. That's to LaRock, and that's a score.
Unfortunate for Dallas there on that turnover when they had gotten the D. Jimmy Mitchell making the D-line just calm down. Let's get set up. Let's run an offense just like the O-line's been doing thus far. But sometimes D-lines can be a little bit off-kilter because of that. They want to try and score in transition. They want to keep the momentum going. They want to be move. Jimmy slowing things down. Threw a decent pass, but it was a little bit too far for Frood, who maybe didn't expect it to go to that spot. He bid for it, but it's late in the game. You got a bit of mental fatigue. You got a bit of physical fatigue, and he just couldn't reel that one in.
Jacksonville 3-goal lead, 1:50 left in the third quarter, 21-18. Dallas O-line on the field. Dustin Travaglini to pull for Jacksonville. Mazer catches, centers to Smith. Free child underneath.
Shut it down, Kerner! Shut him down, Kerner!
Malachek picking up trash. Flick Huck to Coffin. Coffin's got space and closing speed. That's a goal.
Jacksonville once again using their big, deep guys, Polk, Misha, to cover the handler core, or ending up with those matchups in this underfield space. Coffin having a field day in that D space right there. At first, that pass goes up. It looks extremely far for anybody to get, but it's high enough and it sits up. So Coffin, being as fast as he is, has to even slow down just to catch the thing at the very end of that.
Jacksonville lead now trimmed to 2, 1:31 left in the third. Jay Frood to pull for Dallas. Both sides anxiously awaiting the go from the officiating crew. That pull goes up and out of bounds.
Unfortunate for Dallas. One of those things you want to be doing when your defense is getting breaks, when you are starting to kill this lead, is you want to have their offense set up in a flow of whatnot. If you give these good field position with these breaks and you slow the game down, Jacksonville wants that. They want to be able to set up.
Lay with the disc right off of the top. Layout D from Frood. That's a block. Officials timeout called. Huston is on the ground. There was no foul called on the play. We'll take a look at the replay. Lay right off the bat, throws the Huck. Looking for LaRock. And you can see Frood makes the bid and then has contact.
He makes
with
the bid,
Huston.
he makes contact with the disc and gets the D solidly before any contact with the player, which gives him somewhat the right of way because he got to the disc first. Both players are entitled to the space for the disc. He ends up running into Huston's legs. Unfortunate contact there, but at the same time, if Huston couldn't get to the disc before Frood made the play there at an angle that wouldn't originally hit Huston in the legs, you can't necessarily call a foul on that because at the same time, he made a play away from the player and towards the disc.
Good eyes from Julie Gordon. Matt Jackson to pick up for Dallas. Underneath to Jason Holleran. Holleran up the line, looking for Dan Emmons. Dan Emmons catches it, dishes to Peterson. That's a goal.
Jason Holleran has an excellent upwind forehand huck that most teams just kind of take for granted, because you say Jason Holleran on a team like this where you have so many known throwers like Mickle, Freechild, Malachek, all the whatnot. You don't necessarily expect that guy to be taking that shot, but you know what? Dan Emmons knows it. He sees that there's nobody in the deep space, and Holleran has the disc with an open lane to shoot to. He's going to give, as good a look as he possibly can, and that was a very well thrown disc to a very fast receiver that knows what he needs to do.
Great hockey assist from Jason Holleran. Great track down from Emmons. And we have a 1-point game sitting at 1:11 left in the third quarter. Jacksonville 20, Jacksonville 21, Dallas 20.
And the majority of that 6-point lead that Jacksonville had has deteriorated in the past 4 or 5 minutes of this quarter. The first portion of this quarter saw basically trading points. Dallas is on a run right now.
Mickle on the field for defense. He has the disc to pull. Plenty of runners and athletes on the field filling out the D-line for the Roughnecks. Matt Jackson and Mickle doing some final conferring before the pull goes up. Lots of hang time on that pull. And it's rolling. Ben Lewis is there. Roney with the disc. LaRock to Huston. Huston on the far sideline, up the line. Langdon catches the trash. And that is a score.
Unfortunate for Dallas there. A little bit more communication. That disc came behind Joel Cletton there. He could have possibly gotten a D when Huston threw the bank up the line here. But unfortunately, they weren't totally situationally aware, and Jacksonville squeaks one by there. Langdon, very accomplished thrower in his own right, finds a very fast Jacksonville receiver downfield.
Good heads-up play from Michael Farley. The lead stays at 2. Just under 50 seconds remaining in the third quarter. We have a 2-point game and still another quarter to play.
If you thought it was gone at 6-point difference with two quarters left to play, you're sadly mistaken against either one of these teams, to be perfectly honest.
Both teams very strong in their own right. Hopefully we will have this playoff matchup at the end of July. Another fun game to watch ahead of us. Hogg catches the pull, centering to Mazer. Whistle. Appeared to be a clock situation. Mazer finds Peterson. Whistle. Foul called on Michael Hickson. Peterson will keep the disc, advance 10 yards. Malachek to Mazer. 20 seconds left. Freechild with the disc. High release to Coffin. Coffin up the line to Mazer. That's a goal.
Dallas scoring with just over 13 seconds left in the quarter gives himself an opportunity to make a nice stop in the quarter, get another one of those half breaks back. Even though that was an offensive point for Dallas, they could turn it into an advantage gain just by being the last team to score in the quarter.
13 seconds remaining. Dallas trails by 1. As a reminder, they entered the half trailing by 6.
Definitely making up the ground as fast as they possibly can in these past few minutes. Jacksonville right now getting called on those on the foul on that mark there and whatnot. Their sideline getting really upset with the players on the field saying step off the marks. You don't have to play that aggressive. But the thing about it is that they gained their lead in the first half by being aggressive on defense, and it's one of those kind of catch-22s. Is you were aggressive and that got you your lead, but right now your aggression is just compounding with your frustration, and it's not working out for them. They need to find something that works again.
certainly the balance in ultimate disc, finding that aggressiveness while maintaining proper spirit of the game. Peterson and Lewis fast down on the pull. Freystadter to Roney. We're under 10 seconds. Lay with the disc, backhand up in the air, and that is out of reach of Langdon. 2-1. That's the end of the quarter. Dallas trails by 1. We have 1 quarter of disc left to play here, people. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we have the 4th quarter. Dallas versus Jacksonville. Welcome back to the Colony 5-Star Sports Complex in the Colony, Texas. I'm Emmy Fitzgerald, joined by Paul Burt. Paul, this is shaping up to be quite a game. To recap the 3rd quarter, Dallas entered in the 2nd half, trailing by 6, have narrowed to 1. What do they do to really take this to the finish line?
The game of each team, Dallas, they got to understand, guys, we found chinks in the armor. We know where we need to attack. We see where Jacksonville's faltering right now. Keep the pressure, maintain your intensity, try and build to finish this game with not just being down, close, but win by 4 or 5 points. Jacksonville is a game of, you've had success being aggressive. You faltered a little bit being overly confident or taking shots you didn't necessarily need to. Find your composure and get back on your game.
Roney with the disc for Jacksonville, guarded by Jackson. Catron to Langdon. Langdon around to Kunsa. Kunsa to Roney. Langdon catches that scuba underneath. Around to Lay. Lay moves off the sideline to Langdon. Langdon shoots that big backhand to Catron. Hollerin peels. Catron outside the end zone. Frood comes up to help. Langdon with the disc. Catron jumps in. Jacksonville with the score to start the 4th quarter.
And you see Dallas there doing a lot of poaching off the front of the stack into that line strike space for the first 2, 3, 4 throws as Jacksonville got close to the goal line. Everybody's looking to play that help defense. Unfortunately, there's at least 1 or 2 people that don't realize they need to be rushing to get on that mark. For a couple of throws there, the thrower had the disc without a mark on him at all for the first 3 or 4 stall counts, and that leaves you vulnerable, which puts defenders out of position constantly.
Langdon, known as more of a deep threat, really coming back to handle.
He is an all-around generator for them on both handling and receiving as well.
11:09 left. Jacksonville, 2-point lead. Malachek to Mickle. Around to Smith. Smith around to Mickle. Up the line to Malachek. Malachek, big fakes, finds Peterson underneath. Around, dish to Mickle. Back to Peterson. Peterson, high release to Coffin. That's a score.
Dallas's handlers having really good patience on that particular point. Had a couple opportunities to take shots to guys that were streaking deep in the deep space, but Jacksonville definitely looking to use guys like Michigan and Polk to poach over the top and help. Taking a couple more seconds on the stall count gives, and maybe taking a reset pass, gives Dallas an opportunity to hit an easy 15, 20-yard gainer 2 or 3 different times throughout that point, and consequently they get a lot of good field position and find guys right in that upfield, almost inside-out space.
Dallas with the tying goal opportunity, but we'll start on defense. And Jacksonville O-line certainly been very strong. That pull's hanging. Roney with the disc. Looks off Langdon to find Catron. Back to Kunsa. High throw to Catron. Up the line, Langdon. Quick handler movement across from Jacksonville. Lay looking for Langdon. Instead, finds Kunsa. Kunsa up the line. There's Dylan Larberg, though, with that block.
His debut D.
Certainly an athlete. Stops that Huston score. Bobbling catch from Christian. Jackson back to Christian. Fakes up line, finds Larberg. Back to Christian. Christian under to Cletton. Whistle called, timeout Dallas. That is the second and final timeout of the half for Dallas.
At the same time, even with the several minutes left to play in this fourth quarter, that's the smart kind of timeout you want to be taking as far as getting your offense on the field or making sure you have the best opportunity to score right now. We already recognize that this is the game-tying score. You've got momentum. Make sure you have the best opportunity to score this point and keep the train rolling.
Dallas, unsurprisingly, substituting their offensive line on the field. A score here would tie the game. Still 9:22 remaining to be played.
Hey, Beth, I think that's
Jacksonville making several substitutions of their own.
We still have 2.
Crucial point. Not that every point isn't crucial, but certainly time in the game and possession play a factor. Dalton Smith will pick up for the Roughnecks. He's marked by Ryan Chard. Dallas in a 3-handler back formation, but not quite a horizontal stack, isolating Jimmy Mickle. Mickle swinging around, catches that. Abe Coffin underneath. That is a really tall. There's a whistle on the play.
It did look like Coffin could catch that disc. He, like we've already recognized a few times, is an excellent leaper and can get up, but there was definitely contact into his back on that play, so an argument can be made for a foul there.
The ref, one of the officials, saying that there was contact on Coffin's head, but that foul is overruled, saying that that was not catchable. LaRock picks up for Jacksonville. Underneath to Polk. Around Freystadter. Foul called. Freystadter will advance 10 yards. Malachek on the mark.
Patience, patience, patience!
Freystadter walks through. Another whistle called.
I believe the foul was called on the pivot before the release, so because the whistle blew before the disc was in the throwing motion, they take the disc back to Freystadter.
Disc will be in the center of the goal line. Freystadter, far side. And Jacksonville maintains their 2-goal lead, 24-22, 7:43 remaining.
Jacksonville looking to their main generators on this offense, Freystadter, and they had Polk isolated in space on that break side. Obviously, Freystadter is looking for the first 4 or 5 counts of this stall to try and hit him on the break side. But if somebody, presents themselves on the forward side just because the defense stops paying attention, thinking, oh, is almost certainly going to throw a dump pass because it's past stall 5, Freystadter will take that shot.
Huston, 11th goal of the game. Certainly the highest scoring player for both teams. And Dallas O-line walks right back down, ready to play another point. As does the Jacksonville D-line.
Yes.
They just stay there and they say, let's go. Let's play another one. Dustin Travaglini.
In. It's gone. Come on, Jock. I want to see it, Jock.
Mazer catches. Sends it over to Smith. Mickle underneath. Coffin out of reach for Coffin.
Dallas having trouble hitting Coffin today. Either it's floating over his head or just out of his reach.
So now Jacksonville with that disc in the air. St. John's over to Freystadter. Freystadter dishing it. Travaglini. Travaglini up in the air. There was a whistle. I believe there was a whistle as the disc was in the air. Offensive foul called on Jacksonville.
That caused them to lose yards as opposed to gaining a score there.
Very athletic.
Well, actually, it looks potentially a defensive foul against Dallas on the pivot again.
While the disc was still in the air, which is why it's not a foul, but Travaglini will take it at the center of the goal line. Another whistle. Timeout, Jacksonville.
Jacksonville knowing how to manage a clock that we talked about before. You got the disc on the goal line. You could honestly, with this 2-point lead, stall this out, take 10, 20 passes to score from basically 0 yards to actually get the goal. And as long as you can maintain the clock, manage the clock, you can keep your lead and Dallas won't have a way to claw their way back into it. Dallas did score 4 or 5 points in a row in something like 4 or 5 game minutes, so they need to manage the clock themselves.
Certainly something very different about AUDL disc play versus college or club, where you're playing to a point or a time cap, but playing with a moving clock certainly changes your strategy.
Yeah, even with playing to a time cap, the game will still end when a team scores. The game will absolutely end in AUDL when the clock expires. A team does not necessarily have to score. So if you're playing to a time cap, maybe you can have that, oh, we need to score 3 points in order to actually win this game. You still have that opportunity to come back with time already being expired. AUDL, they do not have that.
6:28 remaining to play in the game. Jacksonville substituting their O-line on the field. Dallas returns by making a few substitutions of their own, including Chris Larberg, Jay Frood, Dan Emmons. Frood and Emmons double teaming Roney on the disc, but Langdon just tiptoes that in. They narrowed their lead to 3.
Langdon recognizing exactly where the double team was covering, seeing that he had a potential opportunity on that backhand side. Possibly a little confusion with Larberg, who was matched up against Langdon right there, not knowing that the double team was going to play towards one side of the mark. But as a result, Jacksonville scores quick and gets get a little bit of their lead back.
6:25. Jacksonville with the highest lead they've had since the 3rd quarter.
Very true.
Lots of ultimate to be played.
But at the same time, we saw Dallas pull off 5 breaks in a row or so with less than 6 minutes in the 3rd quarter. So it's entirely possible they can do the same this quarter.
Travaglini to pull for Jacksonville.
Gotta work, D. Gotta work, McKelvey.
Mazer back to catch the pull. Centers to Malachek. Smith going deep. Mickle underneath. Smith still going deep. Mickle with that quick release. Smith closing in. That's a quick goal.
And Jimmy Mickle probably thanking his lucky stars. Finally, a deep shot with nobody sitting over the top. Puts this really pretty downwind forehand shot that he just loves to throw. Dalton Smith knows exactly who has the disc and makes the great cut that gives all kinds of margin for error, but Jimmy doesn't need it. He catches it right in the spot where he needs.
How important is it for Dallas to have quick points, and conversely Jacksonville to try and drag out the points as much as possible?
I mean, we saw Jacksonville have a lot of success in the first half when they generated that large lead for themselves by slowing Dallas down and making Dallas throw 30, 40 passes to score every point, and killing their initiation plays by running that junk zone and whatnot. Dallas has kind of figured out exactly where the chinks in the armor are in terms of that lane poach zone, and they're able to score against it. So Jacksonville changes the strategy, but consequently Dallas gets to run again. They get to actually play, run their initiation plays. They get to have their typical offensive flow, and Jacksonville will struggle sometimes playing against that.
Frood pulling for Dallas. That stays in bounds. Roney with the disc. Guarded by Freechild. Now Catron. Huston underneath. Instead finds LaRock. LaRock to Langdon. Frood coming over to help. Langdon looking over the top for guess who? Jordan Huston.
And that's the problem. Dallas taking a bit of a risk, trying to get that D, having Frood come over and make a poach play on this undershot from LaRock. Langdon is an accomplished thrower, and he sees, oh, okay, somebody's out of position because they were trying to make that poach D. Who is it? And, of course, the guy that's been finding the backside of the field the entire night is exactly who he's looking for. So he puts his big blade across the field. Huston has all day to run it down.
Huston with his 12th goal of the game. Jacksonville leads still 3. 5:49 remaining. Both teams scoring quick points. Travaglini, the de facto puller for the Jacksonville D-line.
He's been doing very well so far.
Malachek catches the pull, gets to Mazer. Peterson isolated underneath with the reception. He sends that up to Abe Coffin. Abe Coffin stumbles in, not in, but does catch the disc. Moves to Casey Hogg, dishes to Malachek, right on the goal line. Back to Hogg, back to Malachek. Hogg is inbounds for the score.
And that's just a couple of very veteran players doing very veteran things between Malachek and Hogg right there. Most of these passes are just easy reset passes, and they're getting the defense to overplay, thinking that the play is flowing, faster and further than it is. The dump passes are really easy. Hogg dishes it over to Malachek, acts like he's going to push. Malachek knows exactly what Hogg is doing, throws the fake. Mark way overplays, as does the upfield defender, and Hogg is just wide open by about 5 yards with only 3 yards to throw to him.
2-goal lead for Jacksonville, 5:20 in the fourth. Both teams Plenty of adrenaline flowing.
Yes, it's much more intense in this fourth quarter than it was in the first.
Of course, Jacksonville will travel to play Austin in Austin Saturday night.
On your feet, Roughnecks.
That pull's floating. Lands on the ground. Peterson is right there as Roney picks up the disc. Roney looking for Huston. Overthrown. Dallas is on offense now. Freechild, quick pass to Jackson. To Dylan Larberg. Finds brother Chris. Chris on the far sideline. Up to Jay Frood. Frood, IO backhand to Jackson. Freechild. Freechild looking for Clutton, high in the air. Clutton is in.
Joel Clutton doing what Joel Clutton does really well, being not just a tall guy, but a very big guy that uses his body to position himself where Langdon's an extremely good player, extremely good defender, but he has to do everything he possibly can to just have a chance at this disc. Clutton being as tall as he is and using his body position as well as he did, making that big grab high in the air, but also has the field awareness to put his foot back and make sure he lands in the goal as he's making that beautiful sky.
That's Clutton's first goal of the game tonight, but that goal brings Dallas's deficit to 1. Jacksonville still with the lead, 4:45 left to play. Tall, athletic D-line on for Dallas, which is just about every line, let's be real, but especially here. Mickle to pull. Lots of hang time on that pull. Jacksonville kind of going into a side stack formation, moving into a hoe stack. Catron to Langdon. Emmons bids. He bids and appears to have a calf cramp. Langdon immediately there to help stretch him out.
Yeah, previous teammates, both guys know each other really well, respect each other as players, and Langdon being there to help him out.
Hydrate, hydrate. Where's Chris Miller? Get Chris Miller out there.
So Emmons will hobble off the field to receive medical attention. Frood comes on. Jacksonville working it across the field. Catron to Roney, back to Catron, around to LaRock. Active mark from Peterson. Lay with the disc. Over to LaRock. To Lay. Hernandez stealing that continue. Spin move from Lay. Kind of a back and forth. Catches inbounds near sideline. To Catron. Catron to Langdon. Foul, whistle called. Foul on Frood. As Langdon was pivoting for that around. Huston, signature four-side cut. It's not hit that time. Lay and Langdon, little back and forth in the backfield. That is in the air. Hernandez bats that on the ground.
Just another throw from Jacksonville, a little bit too far. They have these nice, comfortable resets and put it out in space, but just because Dallas is putting so much pressure on that, if it floats at all, they feel like they have to make a play early on it.
Dallas on offense with the opportunity to tie. 2:52 remaining. Jackson over to Freechild. Underneath. Time out. Oh. Roughneck down.
potential collision off the play. Not quite sure who it is, to be perfectly honest.
We're not in good positioning to see. Thankfully, our team doctor, Dr. Chris Miller, is attending the game. He attends most games.
It looks like it's potentially Jay Frood.
It does. Miller, of course, performed surgery on Matt Jackson's arm earlier in the season. He actually also performed ACL and LCL surgery on Roughneck player Jake Anderson earlier this week.
Unfortunately, having to take that much advantage of his services this year, Dallas has suffered from various forms of injuries throughout the entire season on various players.
You would never like to have any kind of injury. We are thankful to have such a great resource in Dr. Miller. Frood sitting up. He's helped up by his teammates and will be helped up off the field. Appears to be something with his left leg.
Two unfortunate injuries on this point alone for Dallas.
Emmons and now Frood. Emmons appeared to be a hamstring cramp, but he did also injure his hamstring the last time these two teams faced each other.
Yes, it has been historically tight and troublesome for him throughout this season and previous seasons.
Freechild still has the disc for Dallas. If you recall, Frood came in as the sub for Emmons. Now he takes the sub. Mickle goes deep. Backhand from Freechild to Mickle. Mickle with the goal. Not in. Looking for a teammate. Dallas is out of timeouts. Dishes to Jackson. Jackson on the goal line. To Freechild. We have a tie game.
And Freechild taking that shot down the field to Jimmy Mickle is honestly exactly what Jimmy Mickle wants. He's got a nice high sky ball jumping over people. He has the defender on his back. He knows how to maintain body position. After that, Dallas is screaming down the field because they all realize we do not have timeouts. That's almost certainly been brought up on the sideline numerous times since the last timeout they called. So they're screaming down the field, giving Jimmy a reset as best they can. The composure they maintain there shows exactly how they can finish games if they don't get in each other's way when everybody knows we have to go, 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 go.
Matt Jackson's conditioning certainly paying off for him, being a reset, as Jimmy only has 7 seconds once he catches the disc, and he had no teammates around him.
It was probably about a 50-yard sprint by Jackson to be that last second reset.
So Dallas is on defense. Mazer on the field. That pull is up. 2:22 remaining in the game. Roney with the disc. Freystadter underneath. He's guarded by Joel Clutton. To Catron. Catron to Huston. Huston to Freystadter. Just out of reach for Larberg. Lay with the disc. Not in. Over the top to Langdon. And that is a score.
Jacksonville doing a lot of what Jacksonville does. They're doing a lot of resets and strikes up the line to just gain that four-side reset and get better position. Dallas, unfortunately, got cheated more and more towards this side of the field because Jacksonville keeps completing passes over here, and that over the top came to Langdon, who is smart enough to know, hey, the defense is cheating over there. I'm going to see if we can't take advantage of this entire 50-plus yard width.
Langdon with his 5th goal of the game. Jacksonville takes the lead again. 27-26, 1:47 left. Dallas to receive. No lead is safe at this point. We'll come down to the wire. Jacksonville pull is up. Malachek catches to Mazer. Coffin. Coffin to Smith. That disc is hanging. Smith. There is a whistle on the play. It appears Smith was bumped by Kerner, so he will take the disc on the center of the goal line. Around to Mickle, and we're tied at 27.
Excellent pivots by Dalton Smith to break the mark there and hit Mickle out in the space. On the jump ball, there was contact initiated by the defender when Dalton Smith looked to just box out and have body position. And you did see after the bump between the players, Dalton Smith take a kind of a quick step instead of, he was squared up on the disc. It's very possible he could have made a bid and actually saved that disc from hitting the ground, but because of the contact or whatnot, he got thrown off balance. Contact that hinders a player from making a play, that's basically the definition of a foul, so it's not a bad foul call.
Jacksonville sideline clearly unhappy with the call, however, was in perfect sight line of the end zone ref. And that will tie the game. We're at 1:12. Free child to pull for Dallas. 27 apiece. The pull lands out of bounds.
Free child definitely upset with that one. Again, we want to talk about, you want to generate momentum. Dallas still needs to score on this defensive line to generate a lead, and giving Jacksonville this chance to set up is not what they wanted.
Matt Jackson on the mark. Roney with the disc. Underneath to Freystadter, to Catron, Langdon. Emmons back on the field. He sees LaRock. LaRock on the near sideline. Up the field to Langdon. And Langdon with the score.
The score and the kick spike. He is very aware of Dallas is looking to help over the top. Dylan Larberg is an extremely fast guy, but he's not going to make a dangerous play that's going to bid through somebody, and he was very close, but Jeremy Langdon making that layout grab when he could have run it down if there were no defender there.
Langdon knowing, I think he probably could hear Larberg coming in, that train coming in fast and furiously.
Well, he knows several of the Dallas defenders love to do exactly that poach D over the top, and especially since Dan Emmons was playing him underneath, he knows Dan Emmons likes to bait shots, but at the same time, he typically won't do that much.
So Jacksonville back with the lead. We're under a minute left to play. Dallas must score to keep this game alive.
If we do keep it tied at the end of the quarter, it does go into overtime.
Come on, Wyatt. Come on, McKelvey. This is your point, McKelvey.
Malachek with the disc to Mazer. Jacksonville laying out. Mazer still with the reception. Mickle underneath. Coffin looking deep. Swings around though. Mickle swings around to Mazer, to Smith. Freechild going deep. Smith goes underneath to Hogg instead. 30 seconds remaining on the clock. Smith with the disc. Around to Malachek. Mickle trying to break free. Smith, 15 seconds. Mazer, Smith, we're getting to 10 seconds. That is a high jump ball in the air that will not stay in bounds.
Dallas, unfortunately, getting a little too comfortable with their resets in that situation. Realize, oh no, we only have 15 seconds to score. Dalton Smith taking a shot.
5.8 seconds remaining. Double team on the disc. There's a whistle. Timeout, Jacksonville.
Now Dallas in a basically do-or-die situation here. It's unlikely but possible they could get a D and score within the 6 seconds they have left in the game. The clock does not start until Jacksonville takes that first pass.
Dallas taking a long time to set up their scoring throw. Do you think that was a wise decision, Paul?
I don't know if it was by choice, to be perfectly honest. Jacksonville has been very intelligent about how to play this game, and they were very aware of how much time was left in the game. They have been managing the clock the entire game thus far, and knowing that there's only a minute left, they had over-the-top help as they've typically had this entire time. Dallas, using a bunch of horizontal resets, they generate a bunch of different looks for themselves, but they didn't necessarily progress towards the end zone. So when you end up with 15 seconds left and you haven't yet crossed midfield, you have far more sense of urgency in terms of we need to get upfield, we need to get closer to the end zone to have more viable scoring shots.
5.8 seconds left.
If you complete the game right around.
Jacksonville saying from the sideline, all we need is one, which is exactly right. They only need to complete one pass. Dallas cannot poach off of a single player.
And they do. Langdon catches it. Strip foul. The sideline very active. However, the refs do call unsportsmanlike on Dallas. There's 1.5 seconds remaining. Both teams saying the game's over, but the clock hasn't expired yet. But they are hugging it out. Good game. Dallas falls for the first time at home. 28-27 to the Jacksonville Cannons for their third loss of the season and in franchise history.
Unfortunately, their second loss to the Jacksonville Cannons.
Slow start for Dallas, certainly hurting, digging them a hole they couldn't quite get out of. However, Dallas had several times to tie the game earlier on, just ran out of time.
Well, it is one of those things about when you do dig yourself into a hole being down by 6 points, 7 points, whatnot. Dallas had this great surge in the third quarter, but at the same time, sometime that adrenaline can run out for you. Jacksonville will score points again. You try and maintain, your intensity and your growing intensity as you get those breaks, but at the same time, if it has to come at a cost of so much energy to get 5-6 breaks in a row in 4 or 5 minutes of game time, you sputter out a little bit, and in the fourth quarter, maintaining that intensity to try and finish the game just didn't work out for them.
Now, with this loss, if Jacksonville wins out the rest of their games and Dallas loses to Austin, then the 2-3 playoff game the last weekend of July will be played in Jacksonville rather than here in the Colony. Paul, what kind of implications are there for that home field advantage?
Well, at a minimum, it's just teams don't necessarily want to have to travel to play the game. You don't want to necessarily have to manage logistics. You want to make sure that you don't have to get on buses and whatnot. Also, playing in front of your hometown crowd. We saw during those that 5 or 6 breaks in a row that Dallas got, the crowd was on their feet, cheering these guys on, getting them up. Jacksonville does not want to have to deal with that if they don't have to.
And, Paul, you played in Jacksonville. There were more Dallas fans than Jacksonville fans, even when you were there.
There were definitely a strong contingent of the Hollerins, for example, and many Dallas fans. Several players from both of these teams know each other, and their families consequently know each other as well. But yes, Jacksonville having a hometown advantage doesn't necessarily mean that they'll have extra energy from the crowd unless they start generating some of these leads that they've been generating in this game. But at the same time, the logistics, the being able to play, stay in your own bed the night before,
travel weariness,
not have to take a day off of work, whatnot, it really wears on a team having to do that.
And Dallas playing Austin at home Saturday the 15th, certainly not a team to overlook. If you'll recall, the last time Austin came to the Colony and the two teams faced off, Dallas beat them by a very narrow margin of 2 goals. So what does Dallas really need to do to key in to make sure they win this game next week?
Well, I mean, they definitely found things working for them with their somewhat mixture of players that they had this game. They've been trying to figure out who's going to go to championship week, or who's going to be on the playoff team as they've come towards the end of the season here, and they started to work some things out. On the flip side of the coin, Jacksonville's about to go play Austin, and that is a team to be reckoned with, especially having this intense of a game tonight. Jacksonville's players are going to feel a little bit of fatigue, both mentally and physically, in their legs, and they're going to have to be intelligent about how they play that game to try and squeak out a win against Austin.
And both Dallas and Jacksonville with notable players missing tonight. Jacksonville, Cole Sullivan, obviously huge difference maker on offense. On the Dallas side, you have Matt Bennett and Ben Laurie and Kurt Gibson both out. What do you think those three guys make? What difference do they make the next time these two teams face?
I mean, one of the things that we saw Dallas struggle with in this game was their resets and keeping necessarily composure on some of their lines, and having a Matt Bennett play off of a Dalton Smith and some of the other guys that he's played club with really creates a lot of flow for your offense and a lot of comfort as far as making sure you can score points when you get Ds, or making sure you can stick in points when you need your offense to score. Matt Bennett being absent is really hurts the flow of the team as far as just like chemistry with other players.
Right, definitely the Smash Brothers connection from A&M between Dalton Smith, Thomas Slack, another player missing today. Dalton Smith, Thomas Slack, Ben Lewis, and Matt Bennett make a difference. We'd like to thank you, though, for watching this very exciting game tonight. You can follow us on our social media channels on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and on YouTube. We'll be posting all kinds of fun video content throughout the week. And as the team travels to Austin next week, please feel free to follow along on our game day Twitter channel at Roughnecks Live. For Paul Burt, I'm Emmy Fitzgerald from the Colony, Texas. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.